I got uninvited from Thanksgiving on a Tuesday afternoon. My mother didn't call. She texted, "We're keeping it small this year, just us." The message came in at 2:47 p.m., right between two meetings I was leading. I read it twice. Then I saw the second text, sent 4 minutes later. "Your sister thinks it's best." I didn't respond. I set my phone face down on my desk and finished the day like nothing had happened. That night, I accepted the job transfer to Denver I'd been avoiding for 3 months. My manager seemed surprised I said yes so quickly. I told him I could start the first week of December. He said that worked. I didn't tell my parents I was leaving until I'd already signed the lease. My father sounded confused when I called. My mother said, "Well, if that's what you want." I moved on a Sunday. The locks on my parents' house got changed the following Thursday. My father called me at 6:18 a.m. Mountain Time. I was still getting used to the hour difference. His voice had that tight, high quality it gets when he's trying not to panic. "There's a truck outside," he said. "A locksmith. Your mother's talking to him. He says someone called about changing the locks because the bank is taking the house." I sat up. My coffee was still brewing in the kitchen. "What bank?" "I don't know. He has paperwork." "Your mother's crying. She keeps saying she doesn't understand." I could hear her in the background, that specific sound of my mother trying to explain something while barely holding it together. My father was breathing hard. "Can you talk to him?" he asked. "You're good at this stuff." I walked to my laptop. "Put him on." The locksmith sounded tired and professional. He told me he had a work order from a property management company contracted through a financial institution. The homeowner had defaulted on a home equity line of credit. The property was entering pre-foreclosure. He wasn't there to argue. He was there to secure the asset. "Who signed the HELOC?" I asked. "I don't have those details, sir. I just changed locks." I asked if he could wait 30 minutes. He said he had 2 other jobs that day. I asked for the name of the management company. He gave it to me. I thanked him and asked to speak to my father again. "Dad, do not let him touch those locks. Tell him you're disputing the order and you'll call the company directly. If he insists, tell him you're contacting an attorney. Be polite. Don't sign anything." "Okay." His voice was shaking. "Okay. What's happening?" "I don't know yet. I'm going to find out." I pulled up my parents' mortgage documents from the family shared drive. They'd paid off the house in 2019. I remembered because my mother had cried at the kitchen table when the final payment cleared. The deed was clean. No liens. No secondary loans. I opened a new tab and searched for HELOCs filed in their county in the past 6 months. Public records. It took me 11 minutes to find it. A credit line opened on October 8, $140,000 against the house. Both of my parents' names were on the application. The processing bank had flagged it as approved. I called my father back. "Did you take out a home equity loan in October?" "What? No. We don't need money. We're fine. Your names are on a loan. Opened 5 weeks ago." There was silence. Then my mother's voice, distant and confused. "What loan?" I heard shuffling. My mother came on the line. "We didn't take out a loan," she said. Her voice had that edge it gets when she thinks I'm accusing her of something. "Why would we do that?" "I'm not saying you did. I'm saying someone did. Using your information. That's identity theft. We need to call the police." "Maybe," I said. "Who has access to your financial documents?" She paused. "Your father and I. That's it. No one else? No one helping you with paperwork?" Another pause. Longer. "Your sister's been helping us with some things. Medical bills. Insurance forms. She's been very helpful since you left." I saved the HELOC document to my desktop. "What kind of things?" "I don't remember all of it. She brought some papers over a few weeks ago. Power of attorney, I think. In case something happens to us. It's smart to have that in place. My hand stopped moving on the trackpad. You signed power of attorney documents? She said it was just a precaution. In case we get sick. You weren't here to help, so. When did you sign them? I don't know. October, maybe? She was in a hurry. We signed them at the kitchen table. I opened a new search window. POA filings. Same county. October 12th. 4 days after the HELIC application. My sister's name was listed as attorney in fact for both of my parents. Medical and financial authority. Broad, durable, immediate. Mom, I need you to do something. Go to your file cabinet. Find the copies of the papers you signed. Take photos of every page and text them to me. Why? What's wrong? Just do it. Right now. I heard her moving. Drawers opening. My father's voice in the background asking what was happening. My mother saying she couldn't find anything. Then, oh, here. There's a folder. It says estate planning. That's it. Open it. Silence. Then, these don't look like the papers she brought. What do you mean? These say something about transferring the house. Your sister said it was just medical decisions. I screenshotted the HELIC record. Then the POA filing. I saved both into a folder on my desktop labeled Documents, November. My phone buzzed. My aunt's name appeared. I let it go to voicemail. She called again immediately. I told my mother I'd call her back in 10 minutes. I answered my aunt's call. Did your parents just take out a massive loan? She asked. No, hello. Her voice was sharp. How do you know about that? Your sister called me yesterday asking if I'd co-sign a bridge loan because your parents are having cash flow issues. I told her that made no sense. They don't have cash flow. They're retired with pensions. She got defensive and hung up. I stared at my screen. She has power of attorney over them. She opened a HELIC in October. Now someone's trying to change the locks. My aunt didn't say anything for 3 seconds. Then, I'm calling a lawyer. I'm already looking. No. I'm calling mine. Right now. I'll text you his information. Do not let your parents sign anything else. Do you understand me? I understand. She hung up. 2 minutes later, a text arrived with a name, a phone number, and the words, "He'll take your call." I looked at the time. 7:02 a.m. in Denver. 9:02 a.m. back home. The attorney's office opened at 9. I called at 9:03. The attorney's name was Richard Epstein. He listened without interrupting while I explained the timeline. When I finished, he asked if my parents had dementia or any cognitive decline documented by a doctor. I said no. He asked if my sister lived with them. I said no. He asked if there was any history of financial elder abuse in the family. I paused. Then I said, not that I knew about. He told me to send him everything I'd found. He'd review it and call me back within 2 hours. He also said to tell my parents not to communicate with my sister until he advised otherwise. I asked what that meant for Thanksgiving, which was now 6 days away. He said, I'd suggest they keep it small this year. I sat at my kitchen table after we hung up. My coffee had gone cold. The apartment was quiet in a way my parents' house never was. No television in the next room. No phone ringing with neighbors calling about nothing. I thought about the last time I'd been home, 3 weeks before the text message. My mother had been reorganizing the linen closet. My sister had been sitting at the kitchen table with a laptop and a stack of file folders. She'd looked up when I walked in and said, "You're here." Not hello. Not a question. Just an observation, like I was furniture that had been moved. I'd asked what she was working on. She'd closed the laptop. Just helping mom and dad with some things. You wouldn't understand. My mother had come out of the hallway holding towels. Your sister's been such a help. I don't know what we'd do without her. I'd nodded. I'd made coffee. I'd left after 20 minutes because the air in that house felt like it was pressing on my chest. That moment made sense now. So did the time 2 years ago when my sister convinced my parents to add her name to their checking account for emergencies. My father had mentioned it casually, like it was no different than me having a spare key. I'd asked why she needed account access when they were both healthy and managing fine. My mother had said, "She's just being responsible. You're always so suspicious." And the time my sister told my parents I'd refused to help them move furniture when I'd never been asked. I'd heard about it 3 weeks later from my aunt, who'd been confused about why I'd abandoned them. I'd called my mother. She'd said, "Well, your sister said you were too busy." I'd told her I was never asked. She'd gone quiet, then said, "I must have misunderstood. I hadn't pushed it." I'd told myself it wasn't worth the fight. That my sister had always been like this, rewriting things to put herself at the center, making herself indispensable by making me invisible. My parents had always chosen peace over accuracy. I'd learned young that correcting the narrative just made me the problem. So I'd stopped correcting it. Richard Epstein called back at 10:47 a.m. "Your sister opened that HELOC using the power of attorney," he said. "The bank accepted it as valid because the POA was filed and notarized. She's also been making withdrawals from your parents' checking account. Small amounts, under $500 each time, but consistent. It's been going on since mid-October." "How much total?" "About $8,000 so far." I wrote that down. "What about the locksmith?" "That's where it gets more aggressive. She contacted a property management company and told them your parents were mentally unfit and refusing to leave a property that was entering foreclosure. She provided the HELOC documents as proof of financial distress and requested an emergency lock change to secure the asset before they damaged it further." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. She told them my parents were mentally unfit? Yes. It's in the work order notes. She also told them you'd been manipulating your parents and that she was trying to protect them from financial exploitation. I didn't say anything. "Mr. Brennan, are you still there?" "Yeah." "Your parents need to revoke that power of attorney immediately. Today. And we need to freeze that credit line before she withdraws more. I can draft the revocation, but they'll need to sign it in front of a notary. Can you get them to my office this afternoon?" "I'm in Denver." "Then find a notary there and get them on a video call." "This can't wait." I called my father. I told him what the attorney said. I told him he and my mother needed to go to the bank, then to a notary, then to Richard Epstein's office. My father asked if we should talk to my sister first. I said no. He asked why. I told him she'd been taking money from their account for 5 weeks. He went quiet. Then he said, "How much?" $8,000. My mother's voice came through, distant and confused. "That can't be right. She wouldn't do that." I didn't argue. I just repeated the instructions. My father said okay. He sounded smaller than I'd ever heard him. At 2:30 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from my sister. "Why are mom and dad suddenly not answering my calls? What did you tell them?" I didn't respond. At 3:15 p.m., another text. "You've always been jealous that they trust me more than you. This is pathetic." I took a screenshot. Saved it to the folder. At 4 p.m., Richard Epstein called. "POA is revoked. Credit line is frozen. Your parents are shaken, but they're understanding what happened. We've also filed a fraud report with the bank. They're starting an internal investigation. What happens next? That depends on what your sister does." If she tries to access the accounts again or contests the revocation, this becomes a legal matter very quickly. If she stays quiet, we monitor and document. She won't stay quiet. No, he said. Probably not. That night, I got a voicemail from my mother. She sounded tired. Your sister came by the house. We didn't let her in. She kept saying we were being manipulated. That you were turning us against her. She was crying. Your father told her to leave. There was a long pause. I don't know what to think anymore. I saved the voicemail. I didn't call back. I sat on my couch in my new apartment in a city where no one knew my name, and I realized I'd been erased from my own family long before I'd left. I just hadn't noticed because I was still physically there, filling space, being useful when needed and invisible when not. The difference now was that I'd stopped trying to prove I belonged. I opened my laptop. I started a new document. Timeline. Evidence. Transactions. I worked until after midnight. The quitclaim deed appeared on November 22nd. My aunt found it during a routine records check she'd started doing twice a week. She called me at 7 a.m. Your sister tried to transfer your parents' house into her name. The filing was submitted yesterday. It hasn't been recorded yet because the county office flagged it for review. I was already awake. I'd been awake since 5:30. Sleep had become optional. Flagged for what? The POA was revoked 5 days ago. It's in the system. When she submitted the deed transfer using the POA as authorization, the system kicked it back for manual review. Someone has to verify the authority is still valid. How long does that take? Could be today. Could be next week. Depends on how backed up they are. I forwarded the information to Richard Epstein. He responded in 4 minutes. Filing an emergency motion to block the deed. We'll also be requesting a restraining order preventing her from filing any further documents related to your parents' assets. At 9:20 a.m., my sister called my parents' house. My father told me about it later. She'd said she'd made a mistake with some paperwork and needed them to sign a correction. She'd said it was urgent. She'd said the bank was threatening foreclosure again and this would fix it. My father had asked what paperwork. She'd said, just a transfer form. It protects the house from creditors. My father had said no. She'd asked why he was being difficult. He'd said, Richard Epstein told us not to sign anything. There was a pause. Then she'd said, you hired a lawyer? Against me? Not against you. To understand what's happening. What's happening is that I'm trying to save your house and you're listening to someone who's been gone for 3 weeks and doesn't care about this family. My father had hung up. That was the moment. Not the loan. Not the withdrawals. That phone call, where she tried to convince my father that protecting himself was betraying her. Where she made his confusion into a weapon and his clarity into disloyalty. I didn't hear the call. I wasn't there. But when my father told me about it, his voice was different. Flatter. Like something had finished breaking. I'd stopped sleeping in my bedroom by then. The couch felt safer, closer to the door. I didn't know why. Nothing was wrong in Denver. But my body had decided that being ready was more important than being comfortable. I ate breakfast standing at the counter. I kept my phone on the table during meetings. I checked the county records portal 3 times a day. On November 24th, Thanksgiving, I worked a half day and then walked to a diner 2 blocks from my apartment. I ordered coffee and a sandwich. I sat by the window. The waitress asked if I was waiting for someone. I said no. She seemed sad about that, like I was supposed to be somewhere else. I left a good tip. My mother called at 4 p.m. We're having leftovers tomorrow if you want to drive back. I'm in Denver, Mom. Oh. Right. I forgot. I didn't remind her that she'd told me not to come. At 6:30 p.m., my sister posted a photo on social media. My parents' dining room. The table set for 3. The caption said, "Grateful for family that shows up." My mother was in the background, smiling in a way that didn't reach her eyes. My father wasn't in the photo. I took a screenshot. The restraining order was granted on November 27. My sister was prohibited from filing any documents related to my parents' property, accessing their financial accounts, or entering their home without written permission. Richard Epstein emailed me the signed order at 10:15 a.m. He said, "She'll be served this afternoon. Expect a reaction." The reaction came at 2 p.m. A 12-paragraph email to my parents, CCing me, my aunt, and 2 of my cousins. The subject line was "The truth about what's happening." She wrote that she'd been trying to help our parents plan for their future. That they'd asked her to manage their finances because they were scared and confused. That I'd swooped in after abandoning them and convinced them they were victims. That the power of attorney was their idea. That the HELOC was necessary to cover medical expenses they were too proud to tell anyone about. That the deed transfer was an estate planning strategy recommended by multiple financial advisors. She wrote that I'd always resented her relationship with our parents. That I'd never forgiven her for being the one they relied on. That this was revenge for being uninvited to Thanksgiving, which she claimed was my mother's decision, not hers. She wrote, "I have done nothing but love and protect this family while he has done nothing but leave." I read it twice. Then I opened the folder on my desktop. I pulled the bank statements showing the $8,000 in withdrawals. All of them were transferred to an account in my sister's name. I pulled the HELOC application. The funds had been dispersed to the same account. $140,000. October 9th, same day the credit line was approved. I pulled the call logs from my parents' phone records, which Richard had subpoenaed as part of the fraud investigation. My sister had called my parents 16 times in the 2 weeks before I moved. After I left, the calls dropped to 3 times total. All of them short. Under 2 minutes. I forwarded everything to Richard Epstein. No comment. Just the attachments. He replied, "She's creating a narrative for court. Don't engage. Let her keep talking." On December 1st, the bank completed its internal investigation. The fraud claims were validated. The HELOC was voided. The $140,000 was frozen and flagged for recovery. My sister was notified by certified mail that she was under investigation for financial exploitation of vulnerable adults and that criminal charges were being considered. My mother called me that night. "Your sister says this is all a misunderstanding. She says the bank made a mistake." "The bank didn't make a mistake, Mom. But she's saying." "I know what she's saying. It's not true." There was a long silence. Then, "She's still my daughter." "I know. I don't know what to do." "You don't have to do anything. The system is handling it." She started crying. Soft, tired crying. "I just want things to go back to normal." I didn't tell her that normal was the problem. I just said, "I know, Mom." The mediation was scheduled for December 10th. Richard said my parents didn't have to attend, but it would be better if they did. My sister had requested the meeting through her attorney. She wanted to resolve this within the family. I booked a flight home for December 9th. Part 4. The mediation was held in a conference room that smelled like cleaning solution and old coffee. My parents sat on one side of the table with Richard Epstein. My sister sat on the other side with an attorney who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. I sat next to my father. The mediator was a woman in her 50s with reading glasses on a chain and a yellow legal pad. My sister spoke first. She said the entire situation had been blown out of proportion. She said she'd opened the HELOC because our parents had asked her to. She said they'd been worried about property taxes and wanted access to emergency funds. She said the money transferred to her account was reimbursement for expenses she'd covered on their behalf over the past year. She said she had receipts. The mediator asked to see the receipts. My sister's attorney slid a folder across the table. Richard opened it. He flipped through 3 pages, then looked up. These are Home Depot purchases and grocery bills. The total is $1,800. You withdrew $8,000. My sister's face didn't change. There were other expenses. I don't keep receipts for everything. Richard closed the folder. The HELOC was for $140,000. All of it was transferred to your personal account on October 9th. Can you explain what emergency required that amount? It was precautionary. In case they needed it. They didn't know the account existed. They're confused. They forget things. My father's hand tightened on the armrest. I put my hand on his shoulder. He didn't look at me. The mediator made a note. She asked my sister when the power of attorney had been signed. My sister said October 12th. The mediator asked if my parents had consulted with an attorney before signing. My sister said it wasn't necessary for a simple POA. The mediator asked if my parents understood they were giving her full financial authority. My sister said yes. She said they'd discussed it thoroughly. Richard slid a document across the table. This is the POA you filed. It's not a simple medical directive. It's a durable financial power of attorney with broad authority. It allows you to sell property, open credit lines, and access all accounts. Did you explain that to them? They understood. Did you explain it? My sister looked at her attorney. He cleared his throat. My client believed her parents understood the scope of the document. Richard didn't blink. That's not what I asked. The mediator intervened. She asked my parents directly. My mother said she thought she was signing something for medical decisions. My father said my sister had told them it was standard estate planning and that they needed to sign quickly before the notary left. My sister leaned forward. That's not what happened. You both said you wanted me to handle things because you didn't trust him. She looked at me. You said he'd abandoned you. My mother's face went pale. I never said that. You did. The day before Thanksgiving. You said you were hurt that he chose a job over family. I didn't. My mother stopped. She looked at me. I don't remember saying that. Richard pulled out another document. This is a text message from you to your son on November 3rd. It says, "We're keeping it small this year. Just us. Your sister thinks it's best." Is that accurate? My mother nodded. Did your daughter tell you why she thought it was best? She said it would be less stressful. Did she say anything else? My mother hesitated. She said he'd been pulling away from the family. That he didn't care about us anymore. Richard made a note. Then he looked at my sister. You told your parents their son didn't care about them. Then you told him he wasn't invited to Thanksgiving. Then, 1 week later, you opened a $140,000 line of credit in their name and told a property management company they were mentally unfit. Is that accurate? My sister's attorney put his hand on her arm. She ignored him. I was protecting them. From what? From making bad decisions. From being taken advantage of. By whom? She didn't answer. Richard slid the final document across the table. The quitclaim deed. On November 21st, you filed paperwork to transfer your parents' house into your name. You used the power of attorney as authorization, even though it had been revoked on November 17th. The county flagged it because the revocation was already in the system. Can you explain why you attempted to transfer property using an invalid POA? My sister stared at the document. I didn't know it had been revoked. You were notified by certified mail on November 18th. I didn't see it. You signed for it. We have the receipt. The room went quiet. My sister's attorney whispered something to her. She shook her head. She looked at my parents. I was trying to protect your assets. If the house was in my name, creditors couldn't touch it. My father's voice was hoarse. What creditors? We don't have debt. The helic. That you opened. My sister's face flushed. You're twisting everything. You're making me sound like a criminal when all I did was try to help. The mediator set down her pen. I think we need to take a break. My sister stood up. No. I'm done. This is insane. I'm being attacked for caring about my family. She looked at me. You did this. You turned them against me because you couldn't stand that they needed me more than you. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her. She stared back, waiting for me to react. When I didn't, she grabbed her bag and walked out. Her attorney followed, apologizing to the mediator on his way out the door. The mediator looked at Richard. Well, that was clear. Richard nodded. We'll be recommending the DA press charges. My mother started crying again. My father put his arm around her. I stepped outside. The hallway was empty. My sister was gone. I stood by the window and watched cars pass on the street below. My phone buzzed. A text from my aunt. How did it go? I typed, "It's over." She replied, "Good. Come by the house before you fly back." I did. She made coffee. We sat on her porch. She asked how my parents were doing. I said they were confused and sad. She said that made sense. She asked how I was doing. I said I didn't know yet. She nodded. Your sister's always been like this. Even when you were kids. She'd break something and then cry until your mother believed someone else did it. Your parents chose peace. You got tired of fighting. That's not your fault. I didn't say anything. You did the right thing, she said. I wasn't sure if that was true. But I knew I'd done the necessary thing. The DA filed charges on December 18th: financial exploitation, fraud, forgery. My sister hired a defense attorney. My parents didn't press charges, but the state moved forward anyway. Richard said it happens sometimes in elder abuse cases. The system takes over when families can't. I flew back to Denver on December 20th. I didn't go home for Christmas. My parents understood. My mother sent a card. It said, "We're sorry for everything. We love you." I put it on my fridge. I started running in the mornings. The air in Denver was thinner, colder. It hurt my lungs in a good way. I fixed the loose handle on my kitchen cabinet. I bought a plant for the windowsill. I joined a climbing gym. On New Year's Eve, I stayed in and watched a movie I'd been meaning to see for 2 years. My father called on January 3rd. He said the house felt quiet. He said my mother was seeing a therapist. He said they were working through things. He asked when I'd visit. I said maybe in the spring. He said that sounded good. I didn't ask about my sister. He didn't bring her up. In February, I got a promotion. My manager said I'd been doing excellent work. I thanked him. That weekend, I drove to Boulder and hiked a trail I'd read about online. The view from the top was sharp and clear. I took a photo, but I didn't post it anywhere. I just saved it. Sometimes I think about the text message. We're keeping it small this year. Just us. I think about how easy it was for me to disappear when I stopped being useful. I think about how long I'd been expendable without realizing it. Mostly, I don't think about it. I go to work. I climb on Tuesdays. I call my father on Sundays. My mother asks when I'm coming home. I tell her I am home. She doesn't understand what I mean, but she doesn't push. Last week, I saw a family at the grocery store. A mother, a father, 2 adult kids. They were laughing about something, reaching over each other for produce, completely comfortable in each other's space. I watched them for a moment. Then I finished my shopping and went home. My apartment was quiet. I made dinner. I ate at the table instead of the couch. The plant on the windowsill had grown 2 new leaves. Tomorrow I have a meeting at 9. Then the climbing gym. Then nothing in particular. That's enough.